talking with someone about a feature and the way they're talking about it, the complexity they seem to have internalized doesn't match your expectations at all. Let's walk through this using my least favorite thing in the whole wide world, the 2x2. Vertically, let's go from you think this thing is way easier than what they're talking about, up to this thing is the hardest thing in the world. You don't know why they think it's so simple. On the horizontal axis, let's go from this is something you actually know something about to this is something you've never really thought about until this moment, but you have a really strong gut reaction about what you want. In each of these quadrants, you can be wrong in different ways. Up in this upper right quadrant, this is where you think you know what is being discussed and you think that it is hard. You know that it is hard. This is a place where I found that a lot of corporations get themselves stuck, because they tried something in the past and now they will never try it again. You made a piece of plastic to go with your video game and it didn't sell very well, so plastic attachments to video games must be the worst idea ever. Up here comes a lot of fear because things didn't go the right way when you tried this last time. The thing you have to remember is that things change, industry moves, technology changes. Things that used to be really hard or impossible might now actually be quite a bit easier. On the opposite diagonal, you don't really know anything about it, but you feel like it's gonna be easy. This is where a lot of execs live. They have an instinct of what they want something to take, and they just really entrench on that belief. Just because you don't know how hard something is doesn't automatically make it easy. Down in the lower right is the one that I've fallen victim to the most in my career, which is you've done this before and you can't understand why the complexity that is being quoted back at you is so much higher than when you did it back in the 90s. The trap you're falling into here is a misunderstanding of what the feature actually has become. When you did it, maybe there was no networking requirement, or maybe it only had to work on one platform, or maybe there was no certification requirements. And now those things have come into being over the last decade, and your reaction that it's super easy, that you could do it in a couple of days, is completely wrong. Or maybe you don't really quite remember how hard it actually was. You just remember the final triumph of actually completing the feature. Similarly, you can get people from the old guard reacting automatically to things that they don't know as being hard. Every time in their career, when they've encountered something new for the first time, they know that it's way more complicated than it first appears. So any expectation of complexity must be underestimating for things that they don't understand. So they're going to automatically push that complexity up and up and up because they're just simply worried, and they're building this upon the mistakes and trauma of past decisions that they have made. But again, they're not the one presenting this feature. So the person who's presenting might be well aware of the complexities of the feature itself. So your reaction coming from a point of ignorance might be one of fear, when the person who's planning to do it is well aware of the boundaries of the feature. What you're looking for is some sort of alignment in the middle where you are able to understand what the person is presenting to you and to align on the reality of the situation. You could argue that the difference between don't know and know is actually kind of arbitrary, because all of the examples that I gave in know were in fact a form of don't know, because they required a certain degree of ignorance as to the actual reality of the feature, and instead a grabbing onto a piece of faulty information or out-of-date information that allowed a bad decision to be made. I said this was a 2x2, but actually it's worse than that, because it's actually a 2x2x2, because there's a third axis as well. Because up till now, we've been assuming that you, as the person getting the feature presented to you, are actually wrong. That the person that is doing the presenting is the one who knows what's going on, and you are the one who is incorrect in this state. But of course, the opposite could also be true. What if you're right? In that case, where you feel that this is much harder than the person presenting it, that's coming from a position of experience. Now, the difference between experience that is applicable, and in your wrong case, experience that actually isn't applicable, can be very fine. And it can be very dependent on the situation. You just need to work through the problem set and try to figure out if this is fear or if there's something really here. In the case of you having knowledge and knowing that this is easier than what's being presented, then what is happening is that you've learned shortcuts. You've learned ways to do this that are easier than what they're imagining. Maybe there's an existing library that can be used to cut 80% of the work off of the project. Maybe this has already been done before. Maybe this is a solved problem. In the case where you don't really know that much about this feature, but what you're feeling is that it's either much bigger or much smaller than you were first imagining, what this might be an indication of is some form of misalignment. You're asking for a bicycle and they're quoting you the price for a performance motorcycle. Or you think you're asking for a performance motorcycle and they're quoting you the price of a broken down old bicycle. In that case, it's a big red flag that there may be some misalignment in terms of the actual understanding of the feature that's trying to be built, of the feature that you're looking to be built. Like in the case of when you are wrong, the way forward is to try to get some form of alignment in the center where everyone understands the feature as best they can, and you are ultimately all pointing in the same direction. All of this basically just comes down to a need for people to trust the people they're asking to do work, to trust the information that they're providing back, but also to try to understand where their estimates, their fear, their complexity is coming from, so that all of us are trying to do the same work and we're not dismissing estimates from people who know exactly what they're doing, or allowing people to do work that is unnecessary or underbaked when there is some form of misalignment. Ultimately, yes, it comes down to trusting the people you're working with, but also making sure you understand the work that they're proposing to do. So did I just spend 10 minutes basically telling you just to talk to other people and understand their point of view? To some degree, that's exactly what this comes down to. Just because you don't know how to do something doesn't make it easy, but it also doesn't make it hard. And just because you've done it before doesn't mean that you necessarily understand the situation as it now exists. But you might. So you need to talk to the people that are doing the work for you and understand and provide understanding so that they are doing the feature that you actually want, to the quality level that you actually want, and that you are listening to their estimates and understanding and appreciating their points of view as well. Special thanks to my members. They provide the resources that this channel needs to keep running. If you're interested in becoming a member, there's a link to that down in the description. If you're interested in picking up some merch, I'm wearing the High Tea on the High Seas shirt. There is a shelf below this video if you're interested in picking something up. Have you been guilty of any of these mistakes? Have you thought something was going to be way easier than the person was telling you was going to be and then been wrong? Have you been the victim of that when you quoted something as was going to take 3 months, we're told do it in 2 weeks, and then it took 3 months just like you knew it would? Let me know that down in the comments. I will see you again soon. Thank you.